All right, Tony Vitello, all settled in here at the winter meetings. I'm going to start with a hard-hitting question that nobody asked you like 6 weeks ago. Why number 23?
22 unavailable, so there's where we start. The only time I did not wear 22 in college was when Ian Kinsler, who's a pretty good player, was at Missouri.
Yeah.
And so that year I was actually 42, but 23 was a number that was between Will Clark, Willie Mays, pretty good company right there. And there also wasn't many options. So there are a few reasons that bled into it, but excited to move forward with a big league jersey in general.
Well, 22 is gone, 24 is gone, 25 is gone, 21 is gone now. So 23 ended up being a smart choice.
Yeah.
I've talked to both Bruce Bochy and Dusty Baker about getting to know you a little bit. You talked to both those guys, I think, before taking the job. Who was more intimidating for you? Who made you more nervous?
I would say Dusty because Dusty was first.
Okay.
The one thing about that, though, is I was able to meet him during the All-Star break prior to that conversation. And then I spoke with Bruce Bochy over the phone a couple times, but did not get to meet with him afterwards. So maybe you call it a draw. But when I met with Boch, I had my parents with me, and I was fearful that would be a distraction or poor business, whatever it might be. And he could not have been sweeter to my parents. And he and my dad really hit it off, too. So that was pretty cool to see.
I'll tell you, he told me he loved meeting your dad. So
Yeah.
he's like, that was a cool experience. I want to take you back. I heard you say something on a podcast. You said, I was talking to number 16. And I'm like, hold on. That's Peyton Manning. Like, he really casually dropped in. I was talking to Peyton Manning. How involved was he just in your conversations leading up to taking this job?
You know, he was a good resource because he was incredibly neutral. Obviously, he's in favor of all things Tennessee. I don't know that anyone other than maybe Pat Summitt will be more Tennessee than Peyton Manning. But he was good as far as educating just pro sports. What is it like? And I've always asked questions as a fan, but never with the perspective of this could be a potential job. So I think, too, with Peyton, anytime you're around him, he's such a good host. He makes you feel comfortable, whether it's fun being at a game or being involved socially at a party, making sure you got everything you need. So more than anything, he provided some stress relief.
I think one thing I've noticed just in listening to you talk is you seem almost at times to just be like a little fan again, like with some of all this stuff. And you go back to your childhood. And when you are talking to a Peyton Manning or when you look at some of the people you've gotten to know, is there anybody in your cell phone that you still just kind of go like, I can't believe I know that person?
I'm trying to think of who that might be. I think Jelly Roll is as of the most latest number I put in my phone where I was like, I don't think I'm deserving of this guy's number. But yeah, just recently I was talking with Pat Murphy and Dusty Baker at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's got to be a moment of in there like, what am I doing here right now? Where's security? They should escort me out of here. But it's been a fun experience.
I want to go back to the press conference. A couple of things you said that stood out to me. One, you were very passionate about people talk about paying your dues. And you said, I did pay my dues. And it was just in a different way. Can you explain maybe what you mean by that? Because I think a lot of people think come through the minors. I would imagine it's much more difficult to be staying at like courtyards trying to recruit people for 200 nights a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's an insane summer that comes right after your last game. So to take you into a college locker room, you lose or win your last game, and then the very next day, it doesn't matter. When we won, we never met again as a group after we returned tripped from Omaha. Everybody scatters for the draft or for summer ball, and then you have to immediately hit the road. And then that does not stop until the summer is over. And then in the fall, the one thing about college athletes, in particular in baseball, people don't count all the games that they play. They just count the games that are for their college.
Yeah.
They play summer ball. We scrimmage a ton in the fall. We scrimmage in January and February, just like spring training. So no, it is not the same amount of reps, but it is a lot of work.
When you think back to like your younger years, what was the most nights you think you ever spent like on the road trying to recruit people?
Oh, there was probably a few different times where it was 2 weeks straight without returning to home base to switch out the luggage. And, it's fun too. I was kind of joking in the press conference, you get to see the world, you see other places. You maybe visit a buddy that lives in a certain city, but it's pretty taxing to be in a car or on a plane or not sleeping in your own bed. And so there's a lot of college coaches. I just spoke to one over here that are putting in their dues.
Yeah.
It's just in a different way.
Another thing you said, Twitter is not real life. And in this day and age, I would imagine, especially being a young coach in college, you would be on everything. You'd be on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You're not a huge social media guy. Why is that?
I think I've got some stubbornness to me. I don't know why I have it. Maybe growing up in a coach's house, I fell in line, but also resisted a little bit. There's just certain things. If you have to do X to have success, I'd rather find something else to be successful at. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but I kind of just pick my own poison, and sometimes maybe people don't understand where I'm coming from. But at the end of the day, I think peace of mind is the most important thing in the world. So I'm just trying to do a good job and have peace of mind about it as it relates to the job, but also as a human being. You do have to live a life no matter what your work or what your passion is. So just my adopted philosophy. I don't think it's that intense, but let's give it that word for now.
I asked Dusty his advice, and he said, don't read the tweets, don't read the stories. So I think you're ahead already because you're not reading the tweets.
Well, don't read the trade rumors either,
don't
because
read the trade rumors.
I'm sitting in the room, and one came across. I don't think it was the TV. Maybe somebody had it on their phone, and I was like, we literally just got done saying that's not a good idea. Yeah. So it's interesting following all this stuff down here.
You've mentioned how you tried to recruit Bryce. There's some other guys that we talked to. Sam Henches last week. Yeah. He said, I turned Tony down. I went pro. How many guys on this current roster? There's a lot of younger guys. I mean, Pat Bailey came up through college. How many guys did you recruit on this current roster?
Oh, I think you're looking at about 7 or 8 bodies. And then you look into the minor leagues, and there's more. And, of course, Coach Gavin Keelan, the first rounder from last year. And then there's some guys that are just interesting because you got to compete against them or watched Bailey from afar. And, you know, he was up for awards and things like that. So you see these highlights. And so to be up close personal with those guys or to revisit those relationships, it gives you a sense of comfort because you don't want to completely go in blind to what you're doing. So I think there's a level of comfort there.
It actually has not been too long since you tried to get Bryce to come to Tennessee.
No.
And I think he was probably a DH and pitcher at the time. Now he's an option for you at first base. As you look at this 26 team and start thinking about lineups, what do you think of his potential?
I think his potential is off the charts because a lot of people lose, when they start talking about him, they lose context of who he is and where he came from. He's from a northern state. I know it's, you know, not Wisconsin, but a northern state, not a ton of reps. He was a pitcher, a big-time pitcher, so not a lot of reps on defense, not a lot base running. Sometimes you pinch run for that guy automatically in a high school game. He doesn't have, but I think, 1,000 pro at-bats. So you're talking about a guy that is in the infant stage of his development, and on top of that, he's still growing into a body that's huge. As athletic as he is, it's a huge frame. So for all the Giants fans or maybe just the people upstairs when we've talked about him, for all the excitement that is out there, I think it's for good reason. Yeah. And if you dig a little deeper, it's for the right reasons.
How bummed were you when he said, no, I'm going pro?
I thought he's one of those you thought you were getting.
He has the roots.
There's some roots there. And then also sometimes you come across a kid like him that's so polite and is such a good kid. He gives you the warm fuzzies like it's going to work out.
Yeah.
But kids that talented have great options around every corner. And, they choose for different reasons. So one of these days, a coffee, he's barely 21. So it'll be a coffee that we sit down and maybe rehash things. But more importantly, I'm looking forward to pushing forward and helping him become the best player he can become.
I know you're just diving into this, trying to figure out this entire roster, what's ahead of you. It's a lot that's been thrown at you. But I want to ask you about 2 young players in particular. But first is Elliot Ramos, who stands out to me as one of the guys who can maybe most benefit from a new coaching staff. And I talked to Elliot about his defense last year, and he knows, he's self-aware about it. I think he's one of those kids who wants to be great. I mean, when you've evaluated his season and the strides that you guys can help him make defensively, how do you view that for next year?
Yeah, I think you're right about coaching helping him, but I think any coaches could help him. Of course, I'd say I'm confident in the guys that we're, going to announce as our staff, but I think any coaching can help him. I think the big key there is you got a really athletic guy that, as you said, is self-aware of his deficiencies from last year, and then he's taken it a step further. He's really eager to get better. And so that's a combination that every coach would salivate over. And again, I think we could pull any coach from the lobby and they're going to help him because it seems like he's the one that wants to take control of his career and not just be a big leaguer, but be a very successful big leaguer.
The other side of it, the pitching, Hayden Birdsong's like a real swing piece for you guys. you can get him back to where he was in the first half. I know it's early and your pitching coach is just getting into place. Do you have any thoughts on just maybe Hayden's future and what you've heard or seen from his 2025?
Yeah, I think he's got a potential to be a big impact arm, and he's already done that. So it's easy for me to say technically. I think when you're growing up as a player at different levels, you're going to go through, ebbs and flows of your career. And I think, hitting a little adversity last year probably makes it a little sour in the present, whether it's for the coaches or for him or the fans or whoever it might be. But in the long run, it makes you better because you start to figure out different ways to navigate through problems. And unless you're Buster Posey, you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
And he probably even had areas, or times in his career where he had to try and figure out how to toughen his way, work his way, change his mentality through those things to get to the better side. And I think that's where he'll get.
You talked on Buster Only's podcast. You said you want to coach guys as if they're young men. That'll be part of the transition. What does that mean for a Willie Adames, a Matt Chapman, a Logan Webb, a Robbie Ray?
I think those guys have earned the right to call themselves pros, and so they want to be treated like a pro. I think that comes natural. I think for some of the guys that are learning the habits required to stay in the big leagues and have success like those guys have had, they need to earn the right from the coaches and the front office on down to see them in that light, because this is a game that's built on sample size. And in order to survive that sample size, you have to act like a pro in really everything you do. Doesn't mean you can't live life or have a family at home or things like that. But I think it's parallel to the environment we had in Tennessee. Like, everyone wants to be treated like a pro, but you got to act like a pro. And we want to treat, so there's this back and forth that hopefully is naturally there in the locker room. If not, it can be worked towards.
As you talk to these guys and think towards spring training, is there one thing that keeps you up at night just thinking about your first spring as a big league manager?
So what is it like? I mean, just giving you the honest answer. Yeah. It's kind of like coming to the winter meetings. I asked 5 or 6 people. Maybe I don't like bothering people for stuff. I should have asked more detailed questions, but I asked 5 or 6 people, a few outside the organization, what is this like? And no one had like a real specific answer, but now that I've seen it and visualize it and am in the environment, you have a feel. So that unknown is there because it is unknown, but I'm excited to be a part of it. And I think a lot of things will call upon the experience in college, especially in spring training, because that's all about preparing. And that's something we took great pride in there. And, it's something I enjoy too.
I'm going to finish with this. I know you think the world of Drew Gilbert, somebody who helped you turn that program around at Tennessee, take him to new heights. He really kind of took off in San Francisco in the second half and just became a fan favorite, I think. How would you explain his energy and why he's such a favorite of yours?
I think it's easy to see how much he wants to win. And if you pay for a ticket to go to the game, you want to see a win. You want to tell your family about it or your friends about how the day went. So you want that equal kind of give from the players. And with Drew, because he wears his emotions on his sleeve so much, you'll never doubt it. And, I think there's other players too that there's as much give, but you just don't see it as much. For him, you have that visual, the way he plays, the emotion he plays with, and it can really affect a locker room or a dugout. And I think that's his strength that'll never leave. I think for right now too, he's trying to work on, adding to his other strengths so that he can be one of those guys we were talking about that stands the test of time of playing in the big leagues and also having success while he does it.
For all you guys at Tennessee, seeing him like on Pat McAfee and all that for a couple of weeks, what was that like?
It was so fun. The coolest thing is when guys come back, but to work out or train with us or see a game or come back to a football game. But second place to that is us being able to follow them and see them. And, we don't get to look at the box scores every day. I guess you could, but you're so tied up in everything that's going on in your facility. But when it's news that's as loud or as exciting as it was with Drew, it kind of captivated the whole underbelly of our stadium for a while.
All right. I know you have a lot going on right now, so we appreciate taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You probably have to figure out how to get settled in Scottsdale and San Francisco. So good luck with everything before we see you again.
I got the lodging in Scottsdale. San Francisco's next. So the logistics are almost out of the way. All right. I'm looking forward to the baseball stuff.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.